So hopefully you were able to see on the screen what I was trying to talk about, but you didn't hear any of it. Essentially, that's so weird. Well, my apologies for the technical issues. See, that's what I get for selling all my equipment and trying to do it on the cheap. So we'll go back in here. Right. Practice run. Let me switch this back over and we'll take a look at these numbers again and I'll give you my take on them. We'll go back here to eBay. They reported that they were up 6%, which, as I mentioned when you couldn't hear me, is actually pretty good for eBay. Historically, over the last several years, 1-2% gains have been about as much as they've been able to do. So a 6% increase was pretty good. Gross merchandise volume, 19.5 billion, which was up 6% as well. A portion of this, of course, was their advertising offerings, which were $482 million, 2.5% total of their gross merchandise volume. First-party advertising products, $455 million in revenue, which was up 19%. So what we've talked about kind of previously, this thing doing, eBay doing a lot of increases in revenue and a lot of money on the backs of existing sellers by squeezing more money out of us. Total active buyers, 134 million, just a 1% increase, flat compared to last quarter. Not much gain in the buyer base. They still have not announced sellers. Declined to provide a specific active seller figure, which was last reported in 2021 at 17 million. So it's still coming through funky. Let me look at it again here. Are you hearing me? Because it's showing up on my meters like it's coming through just fine. Okay, so Brenda, I'm not sure what your issue is. You might want to try to refresh your browser and see if that fixes it, because everybody else seems to be okay. Continuing on here, enthusiast buyers, which is a big category for eBay, stuck at 16 million, where it has been for nearly 3 years now. That was the current CEO's, that was his big play. He wanted to get these buyers who make at least 6 purchases a year, spend at least $800 a year, and or are also buying and selling. After a big initial gain, that has kind of flatlined. So that's why you're seeing a lot of additional discounting. I've got another article here to cover in a minute. You may remember that eBay ran a sale, seller funded, back in June that I participated in. They're going to be doing that again. So all in, fairly decent results for eBay. I don't think they're going to complain. I'm sure a significant amount of this was probably related to things like inflation, tariffs, and so on. But the fact that their increase is 6% where it's been 1 and 2 is probably pretty good. Amazon, as you saw if you were watching on the screen but could not hear me, they grew 11% in North America. Total Amazon sales grew by 13% in the second quarter. $100.1 billion in North American sales, which obviously dwarfs what eBay is doing. North American market, 60% of their total, international 22%, and the ever-growing Amazon Web Services is all the way up to 18% of their total business. They increased their net income to $18.2 billion in the second quarter. Remember, eBay's gross merchandise volume, the total of everything they did, was only 19.5. So Amazon's profit essentially was what eBay did in total sales. So really interesting. Amazon continued to grow worldwide paid units, 12% increase. Third-party sellers, us, still account for 62% of the worldwide paid units. So big growth continues at Amazon. They just continue to take chunks out of that market. Etsy, however, is struggling. Gross merchandise sales dropped on Etsy by 5.4% in the second quarter. So that's a pretty big drop. On a currency neutral basis, they dropped 6.3%. Pretty rough times over at Etsy. They showed a slide presentation apparently in their market analysis, which showed their top 6 categories represented 86% of their gross merchandise sales. Home and living, roughly a third. Jewelry and accessories, 19%. Apparel, 13%. Craft supplies, 9%. Paper and party supplies, which is a category that's undergoing some changes over there, 8%. Toys and games, 4%. And everything else, which is where I'm at with books, 14%. Number of active buyers also dropped, which is also not good, 4.6% year over year, down to 87.3 million. They claim that they've reactivated 6.5 million buyers in the quarter, which was 2.8% better than the prior year. However, that would indicate to me that they're doing a poorer job of bringing in new buyers, because they activated a pretty significant number of people who had been there before, but their total buyer count dropped again by 4.6%. So they're not attracting new people to the platform. Additionally, bad news, their gross merchandise sales per active buyer has also dropped by 2.9%. So not only are there less of them, they're spending less money, which is not great for Etsy. In terms of my own business, just to get into that real quick, for the quarter, my sales were up a meager 1.54%, which was not great. But the important part, of course, is net profit, and mine was up 9.08%. So I will take that. Last bit of news here. You may recall I talked about eBay ran a kind of beginning of summer sale where seller funded, you could give a discount. I have yet to be billed for any of that yet. It was supposed to happen between 45 and 60 days after the end of the sale. We're now about at 60 days and I've still not been billed. So maybe nobody used it. I don't know. But eBay is inviting certain sellers to participate again in an end of summer sale, not subsidized again by eBay. Sellers must agree to allow eBay to automatically activate the coupons on their inventory. You have to offer a 20% discount and will feature your eBay store inventory during their end of summer sale. They claim they will give you complimentary marketing support. I don't know how complimentary it is if you're funding it at 20%, but eligible listings may benefit from bold text on search results and additional placements on view item pages. Accept your contract and let eBay take care of the rest. Let me know in the comments or in the chat if you're going to participate in that. I am probably going to pass actually on this one. I didn't get enough of a lift off of it previously to justify doing it again. So I will probably be skipping that. Let's get back here into the chat. If you have anything you want to talk about other than all the static. Oh my goodness. Black Cat Flip says, sales have picked up lately on Etsy. I had a couple of really, really good weeks. I think in the last full episode, I talked about I had my best week ever on Etsy. Last week was also very good. This week has been kind of crickets everywhere. It has not been very busy so far. It's only Wednesday, but hasn't been great. But yeah, I had a really good couple of weeks on Etsy right at the end of what would have been their second quarter. So probably too late for that. I went from 5 sales in a week to 17. So probably not enough to move their needle. But all in all, it's always interesting. Some sellers see improvement in sales and traffic when other sellers see a decline. I wish there was a rhyme or reason to how that happens that you could point to, that a seller could say, hey, this is what I did or what I didn't do, and you go try it and it works and everybody's happy, but it doesn't seem to work like that. Media Picker says eBay has been white hot for me the last few months, over 9% increase in gross sales compared to this time last year. That's awesome. I think I'm up for the year about 4%, so not huge. My process has been fairly steady, other than like a 6 or 7 week period there where I increased the number of listings I was doing for a while. Mine has been fairly steady. I'm listing that 100 to 150 a week, selling 90 to 100 a week or more. And it's just been consistent. My average ticket has remained fairly comparable. That big, whatever it was, 8,000 book lot that I bought. Some books in that lot are 50, 60, 80 bucks, and some of them are $4 or $5. So it's been a real mixed bag. Excuse me. Cameron says Etsy is small enough to feel niche competition that eBay and Amazon don't. True, and they keep making changes over there to what they will or will not allow to be sold. And I give them credit for trying to winnow out all of the, the counterfeits and the fakes and the scams and that. But it's obviously also impacting legitimate sellers, and it's caused some people to leave the platform. So while they're trying to kind of right size what they're doing, it's having an impact on their sales. That may be a bullet they're willing to take to get the site right, to refocus on artisans and handmade and actual vintage rather than the cheap knockoff stuff from China. So they may be willing to take that initial decline in sales to weed themselves through all that fake stuff. I don't know. They haven't made that real clear, but I feel like that's probably part of what's going on. Kapow Eagle says, Etsy last week okay, this week slow. Yeah, I think I've had 2 on Etsy so far this week, so not great. Better than Mercari, where I have not made a sale now in 10 consecutive days. I continue to wonder if that juice is worth the squeeze, but as soon as I say that, I'll have a big day over on Mercari. Black Cat Flip says, my July was the second worst month so far, but up overall over last year. My July actually was the best July I've ever had. Not by much, few $100s, but it was a really good month overall. Had a couple of week period kind of in the middle of the month where things were really, really strong, and then it started to tail back off again. Kapow Eagle says, is anyone here selling on Poshmark? I know I do have some subscribers that is actually their primary platform. Lots of mixed reports, again, about what's going on over there. They have obviously over the last year made a ton of changes with their fee structures and whatnot. If there are any sellers here from Poshmark, let us know how it's going over there. Again, my apologies for all the technical issues earlier. This stuff, you just never know. Just a reminder for those of you who may be new here, I am riding again this year in the Great Cycle Challenge to raise money for the Children's Cancer Research Fund. I've pledged 300 miles and I'm trying to raise $1,000 with Media Picker's donation to my Facebook fundraiser earlier. I'm like $49 short of my $1,000 goal. I have said in the videos that I'm doing on the channel that I've got kind of set up for that if I reach $1,000, I'll increase my goal to 350 miles. So there's a QR code on the screen. If you are able to give, I would appreciate that very much. Speaking of that channel, I do have another channel. There is a link in the show notes, the video description down below for that as well. I just put up my 3rd full-length ride video for that. I rode the Creekside Trail, which runs from Dayton to Xenia and back. I did, in fact, make a wrong turn at one point and got a few extra miles. Planned to go out on what should have been like a 31-mile ride. It ended up being a little over 35 miles because I went the wrong way at an unmarked intersection. But if you're interested in watching the ride-along video, that is live as of this morning. It's been a lot of fun doing those. It's a lot of work editing 50 or 60 little clips into one coherent ride video, but it's been fun. It's been an interesting project, and I have enjoyed that quite a bit, actually. Mary McQueen says, I sell on Poshmark. It is her primary. Mercari is second, although it goes back and forth. How is your business over there? Kapow Eagle wants to know, do you sell non-clothing items? Actually, don't sell clothes. There you go. Short of a random piece here and there, but in general, no clothes. What are you selling on Poshmark, Mary? Are you going to stockpile writing videos for the winter months or schedule them out? It depends really on my schedule and how many rides I can do on kind of different paths. My kind of my daily go-tos, because I can ride right from home, are the same couple of trails, and I don't want to just keep doing the same video. So I'm going to try to get out and maybe do a couple of weeks through the fall on trails that I ordinarily would not get to, so that I've got some. I will probably post some of my kind of workout rides and just rides on Zwift as well, just to keep some activity on the channel, but they're not nearly as much fun to look at as being out in actual nature. But I've seen some really beautiful scenery. Big Dre says sales were great until July 29th, and they took a dive. Only one sale since then. I think eBay stopped sales because I made over 1,000 selling 2 items, which is not the norm for me. We have talked about that before, and I kind of noticed that same thing. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, I have sold off some of my higher end podcast equipment, which, based on how this episode started, may have been a mistake. But had some pretty big sales, $400 item, a $300 item, that really quickly got me to my normal $1,200 to $1,500 on eBay, and then traffic seemed to kind of fall off. It's a weird, again, I don't know why they would do that, but it does seem to be a thing where kind of once you get to where you normally are, things start to slow down strangely. Kapow Eagle says, just getting started on Poshmark, books and collectibles. Let me know how you do with books over there. I've had several people that suggested that I consider selling books on Poshmark. When I looked, it's been a while since I looked into it. When I did look into it originally, it was their shipping that really put me off, because it makes books difficult to be competitive. Because I don't, when I checked last, they didn't offer media mail, and that is now significantly cheaper than Ground Advantage, or certainly than Priority, and it makes it a little challenging over there. Mary McQueen, I sell everything else other than what they don't allow. Favorite things are baby blankets, sheet sets, and shower curtains. Doing fine for her, but it's not your full-time income. Black Cat Flips, I sell no more than 200 on Poshmark, almost no clothes, and oddly enough, the best items are kitchen gadgets like can openers and blenders. There you go. I get those messages from Poshmark on occasion, you know, look for your electronics items here, and it's just not a place that would be top of mind for me if I'm looking for something electronic. So it's interesting that you're doing well with kind of stuff that's out of their normal wheelhouse. Mary says, I've sold books and collectibles. Best of luck. Reach out if you have any questions. And again, as I say every week, huge shout out to the community who is very supportive of each other. Answering questions here in the chat and in comments on videos, and sometimes connecting even in person through either meetups or chats online. So really appreciate how you guys pick each other up. Black Cat Flip says, I can't remember the last time I sold a book on Posh. Mostly list plush over there. Kapow Eagle says, thank you. We'll do more research and hopefully branch out slowly. I also sell ephemera. Etsy, if you're not selling on Etsy for like vintage and paper ephemera, that may be a good option for you as well. There is the 20-cent per listing fee that you have to consider when you're listing on Poshmark, or on Etsy rather. But it is a pretty good market for vintage books, paper ephemera. I've sold several things like that over there. So Mary says too, Black Cat, it's definitely not anywhere nearly as clothes site anymore. Maybe I need to revisit Poshmark. It is nice that we have so many options to sell on. It's one of the things I've talked about previously. It's one of the reasons I talk about cross-listing so often. Shameless plug, I do use List Perfectly. If you're interested in trying that out, there's an affiliate link in the description down below. You can save 30% off your first month by using my link, or the code 634 or Galaxy, I think, are the 2 codes I have set up. But it allows me really easily to go in and cross-list my items both to Mercari and to Etsy. Those 2 sites combined in most months represent anywhere from 12 to 20% of my sales, depending on what's going on. So it's definitely worth doing. And having all of these additional sites, whether you use a third-party service to do it or just do it manually, is super helpful. Getting your stuff in front of additional eyes is only going to be a benefit I know we talk all the time about some of these sites. This one's slow, that one's slow, this one's got a problem, this one's got a glitch, whatever. None of them are perfect, but having your stuff where people are, meeting them where they are, rather than trying to get them to come where you are, is terrific. Media Picker says, still no media mail on Poshmark. See, that's a deal breaker. You got an antique book that might weigh 4 or 5 pounds. It makes it tough to do, unless you just do, I don't know if you can you do free shipping over there and just build it into the price and be done with it? But again, you get into a situation where if a buyer is shopping around, they're going to find it cheaper on one of your other sites. So that's a tough one. Type that comment too fast, not anywhere near, only a closed site. We knew what you meant, Mary. True about options. I found I had to pick up a couple and focus on them. It gets a bit overwhelming. That's true on the number of sites that you sell on. I've focused just on 3. I was selling also on Bonanza, which, to be fair, wasn't consuming a lot of my time because it wasn't a lot of business. But getting into too many sites or too many categories can start to be overwhelming. It's why I chose mostly to focus on media, with a primary focus really on books. Also, it's because I can find tons of books in this area. Not a lot of people, not a lot of resellers looking at them. So I've got almost more than I can take in, to be fair. Cameron says $8 is unreasonable for media. I agree, especially if it's a smaller, lighter book. That gets to be, a lot of buyers don't want to pay shipping at all, even if it's like $4.47, which is the new £1 rate for media items. If you weren't aware, if you're not a media seller, when the prices changed back in July, media rates actually went down across the board 16 whole cents on every pound. But that has made media mail more competitive with Ground Advantage. It looks like, to me right now, that the only time that Ground Advantage is going to be cheaper than media mail is probably 4 ounces and under, and probably in the zones that are much closer to you, where previously you could get out closer to 12 ounces and all the way out to zone 7 or 8, and still Ground Advantage would have been cheaper. That is no longer the case. Media mail, with that price decrease and the increase in Ground Advantage, media mail is now really the way to go on almost all of it. I'm not shipping hardly anything Ground Advantage. Pixel Tail, hello. Try to use Posh's unique 5-pound shipping policies to my advantage. Sell jewelry lots and odd size plush and pillows that would be more expensive on other platforms. Right, depending on the category that you're in, and obviously the weight of the whatever it is you've got, it can make huge sense to take advantage of kind of their shipping policies. If you're selling, again, to use my example, books, which, unless they're paperbacks, are almost always a pound or more. In a lot of cases, they come in at the 2 to 3 to 4 pound rate. Suddenly, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. I do, Mary. Can you ship with pirate ship on Poshmark? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that pirate ship does not have Poshmark integration. If you can just upload a tracking number to Poshmark to fulfill your shipping. I don't know if you can do ship on your own on Posh. Again, I don't sell there, so if somebody else can let me know in the chat, you would be able to do that, but you'd have to manually put everything into pirate ship. Mary says to Black Cat, that's what we've done as well. Poshmark generates the label. There you go. They have added Ground Advantage for electronics, but they still send you the label. So, and then it's all priority otherwise. Miss Lachey, welcome. You missed all the drama at the beginning where all the sound was static, so this was perfectly timed by you. There are often times it can really save the buyer some money. Yes. And again, a lot of these platforms, they want to control their own shipping, whether that's because they're making a profit off of it, which I assume they're probably making a little bit, or like in the case of Etsy, where they have restricted the third-party shippers that you can use. Again, this is just my assumption, they're probably getting some kind of affiliate kickback on those things as well. So they're all kind of restricting their integrations. Mercari doesn't offer shipping integration with Pirate Ship. I love Pirate Ship. I still use it, even when, if and when, I assume my Etsy connection finally breaks down, I'll probably still use it. I'll just have to manually enter everything over there. But doing everything on one site to get one scan sheet and one bill, it just makes sense for me. So that's why I use it. But it's getting more and more difficult to do. Yes, have to use their shipping. Kapow Eagle says, thanks because of the slowdown on Etsy, branching out to Poshmark, but starting slowly to feel it out for sure. All the platforms have a learning curve. Some of them, like Mercari, pretty easy. You can get in there and list. There's not a lot of item specifics, not a lot to know. You use their labels. It's pretty straightforward and simple. Poshmark was initially set up to be that way as well, to be as simple for kind of a quote-unquote non-professional seller to be able to get on there and sell some stuff and make some money. If you are a full-time professional seller, as you kind of hone your skills, you start to see things that you'd like to do differently, like the use of a third-party shipping platform, for instance, that some of the sites they're just not set up for. So, but they definitely all have their own learning curve. Jeff, welcome. Appreciate you coming out for the live. If anybody has anything else they would like to discuss today, I did not do my normal Saturday Instagram recap of last week's business. I was traveling to see family, had some birthdays to celebrate, so didn't get a chance to do that. Last week was really, really good. Overall, I had several multiple item purchases. I think I sold 127 listings last week, which was about as good as I've done in quite some time. I have kind of, as I mentioned earlier, ratcheted back my listing pace. I had a 4 or 5, 6 week span there where I was doing a couple hundred a week, and that started to burn me out a little bit. So I'm back down in that 110 to 130 range, which is a lot more manageable. Plus, with doing all the other stuff for the second YouTube channel, I have devoted a little more time over there as well. So, and to actually getting out on the bike, which has been awesome. Mary McQuain says, you're welcome. If I ever try Etsy, I'll be asking you guys the same questions. Just so you're prepared, you don't get a cha-ching, you get this jingling sound. See, I have all my stuff on mute. I just get a little, I get my notification, but it just vibrates, and I get it on my Garmin. But I've turned off all the sounds. Yes, hit the thumbs up. How many of you hit the thumbs down when it was all just static? That'll be coming to people who try to tune into this later and get 2 or 3 minutes of static. I'm going to have to go in and try to edit that somehow. See if I can cut all that out. Crazy. But yes, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new here and you're not currently a subscriber, consider doing that as well. And again, quick reminder, I do have a second channel now for my cycling. If you're interested in that, there is a link down below. Hope you enjoy your workflow and are feeling good. I am feeling refreshed and enjoying the, let's call it the freedom of not feeling obligated every week to do the regular Monday show, and to spend some time kind of doing some other things. So it's been really, really good. And to be fair, this summertime has not been a huge time for news in the reselling world. There've been a few things, but nothing super spectacular. One thing, eBay Open next week. Let me know if you're going, if you plan to attend either in person or in the virtual event. To be fair, I'll probably pop in and out. I don't intend to watch all of it, but I'll probably go in and see kind of what's going on, just to get a feel for it. But I'm not going to spend the better part of 3 days watching all of those events. I got too much other stuff to do. Miss Lachey says, I like the bike rides, kind of relaxing. I have tried to do it in as is the case with this channel, a little more low key. The music's not real loud. The sound is not real loud. I'm not talking the whole time. I'll point out particular high points or landmarks or whatever. But but it's just a subtle, you hear the sound of the bike going down the path and the wind or whatever, and a little bit of music in the background, and get to see all of these kind of interesting parts of Ohio and Indiana that I've been to so far. I'm curious what people think about. I watch a lot of these videos, and at some point the scenery all starts riding through a wooded area, and it doesn't matter if it's Ohio or Indiana or California, woods or woods. So some of these places you do need like more kind of interesting landmarks or parks or whatever to keep the videos interesting. So I'd be interested in feedback on what people think of those videos, but I do appreciate you watching. Mary says we all stayed, which is a testament to you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I should have been, when I had this all set up with all of the equipment, like I had a screen up there and another screen right here, and I could kind of keep an eye on the chat and keep an eye on what I was trying to read. But now I had to move that over here to be able to see what I was doing, and I missed everybody yelling at me that it sounded like crap. My bad. Spam Banshee, welcome. Good to see you. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Chuck Witt, good morning. Like I said earlier, for those of you who weren't here, I thought about doing this show to have this for the normal Monday podcast. I was out of town all day Saturday. I had other things going on Sunday, and I just couldn't get to it. And then yesterday I was like, man, I really need to do that. Let's do a live. Thank you to everybody who has made it out today. I appreciate it very much. I wasn't sure after whatever it's been, month plus hiatus on the live, whether people would get notifications or not, because I know that's a thing too. Black Cat Flip says I'm signed up, probably have it on in the background, and that's fair. There's a lot of people that watch this show with it on in the background and just listen to what we're talking about. You don't have to watch it, though there is some interesting stuff to see. If you plan to roll through Plain City, stop by and say hi. I will. There are some trails up there that I may get to. I'm trying to manage the distance and do things that are like within an hour or so drive of home. Because by the time you get the bike and all the equipment and all that loaded up, get to where you're going, unload it all, get the camera set up and all that kind of stuff, and then do a ride that lasts 2 or 3 hours, and then undo all of that and drive back home. It's pretty much an all-day adventure. So if I'm traveling 2, 3, 4 hours, it gets to be kind of a long day for Salsa, my dog, who doesn't like being in the kennel all that long. Cameron says, I listen to the opens while I work. Want to hear the latest AI they're planning? Yeah, AI. They keep trying to do, there was an article a couple of weeks ago about eBay trying some AI descriptions in kind of the listings. I've not seen any of those personally, but if you have, let us know in the chat or in the comments how you feel about those. There was a lot of question about the accuracy of them. I've not seen them personally, so I can't really comment. Black Cat Flips says, keep wanting to watch the ride videos. It seems like good background vids for listing. Lord Jake Ryan, what do you think of making a video on how you set up your cameras for the bike ride? Blows my mind how you got the back camera. Yeah, see, here's some AI that actually works. So the camera it's a 360 camera. So it has a lens on each side that does 180 degree kind of panorama view. And then it has AI internal in the camera, merges those two along what they call a stitch line. If you watch real close, you'll see in some scenes where there's just a little bit of a wavy distortion, and that's where that stitch line is. But the camera essentially takes those two views and merges them into one, which you're then able to edit kind of however you want. And one of the advantages with that stitch line is you can put the camera on a selfie stick, and assuming that you line the camera up correctly, that stitch line is where that stick is, and it absolutely makes it disappear. So it looks like there's a drone following you. Again, if you want to see what I'm talking about, shameless plug, you got to go watch one of the videos. But it's really cool technology. It works really, really well. The only downside really with that whole process is you end up editing twice, because you've got to edit that 360 footage into normal, whatever, 1080p or 4K flat footage. And then you've got to edit that in your main video editor to make it into a YouTube video. So it is a bit of a time consuming process, but you get some really interesting shots with that 360-degree camera. Melissa, good morning. Welcome. Cameron, what was so bad? See, we were talking. I missed it. The AI. It's okay, but you still have to edit. Yep. I think people enjoy seeing places they've never been to, kind of like a tour. Some commentary is good as well. And the one I put up today, there's some really beautiful like park and ride facilities, some big parks, one of which has a kind of a big sculpture, 9/11 memorial in Beaver Creek, which is just outside of Dayton. So there is, you know, you've got miles of woods or cornfields, and then you'll come into kind of a community and you'll start seeing some things. So it's a beautiful ride. If you catch this week's episode, there's also some dragsters. I passed a raceway that was having an event with on the drag strip, and it was crazy loud. Big Dre says I should start biking. Used to about 4 years ago, but stopped. Would need to buy a bike. Did mountain biking as well as dirt scooter. This would be, gosh, I don't know, 10 years ago, big into road cycling. I had a really nice road bike. And as I got older, that just wasn't comfortable anymore. And I kind of stopped doing it for a while. I'm now on a gravel bike, which has a little bit more kind of relaxed geometry. It's a little easier to ride. It's a little more smooth, a little more comfortable. It's not nearly as fast, but at my age now, it is a much more enjoyable ride to do. And I'm still able to get out and put in the miles. So it has been fantastic. The shorts over there are doing fantastically well. They're averaging, I mean, relative to big channels, they're not doing that well, but they're probably averaging 1,500 views on the shorts, where the shorts I do here on this channel generally are not doing half of that. So that was really interesting to me as well. Those are getting a ton of views. The AI, yeah. And it seems like that's the case, like just with AI generally. There's a lot of suspect results. They talk about the AI hallucinating, just outright lying and citing sources that doesn't exist in, like when you're doing kind of deep research. It's fascinating and it's amazing what it can do, but you've got to bear in mind that there are certain limitations to it. I'm probably less concerned about AI apocalypse now than I was maybe 6 months ago, because I continue to see where the AI continues to struggle to actually do some really basic things. Mountain Bee, welcome, joining late, but definitely check out your new videos. I appreciate it very much. Media Picker, there's even walking, hiking channels on YouTube that are pretty popular. Or watch one that's on the Vegas Strip. Need to go back there at some point. I do, when I'm on the treadmill, I will bring up some of those videos so that I'm not just staring at the blank wall. I've got a TV set up there, and I'll watch a hiking or running video through the Alps or through the forest or whatever. It just helps to kind of break the monotony of being on the treadmill during the winter. Yes, very excited about how the shorts are going. It's not led to subscribers or necessarily views on the long form videos yet, but I think that stuff will come. Jeff says, on the bike ride for your lunch break, it would be welcome if you use that time for filming 2 tide pools, geology, unblurry river views, whatever genuinely catches your eye. I talked about that in the video that just went up this morning. There's a really nice bridge that goes across the Little Miami River on the trail that I was on. And on both ends of the bridge, they've built observation decks, and it's really cool spot to like see a pretty significant way down the river in either direction. And of course I just rode right by. I saw it, I commented on it on the video, and I didn't stop. I just kept going. So again, I think I may have commented to you earlier, I'm trying to find that balance between, like, these rides are for exercise for me, and they're very therapeutic. I can really like tune in to myself when I'm just out focused on doing the ride. And trying to find that balance of stopping to kind of capture things that are super interesting, or just continuing to ride and to let that 360-degree camera that capture those in whatever format that it can, and just use those. So trying to find the balance. Lord Jake Ryan says the AI is just like real people, lying and making things up and trying to get views and clicks. Yes, and there are so many kind of AI companies all shilling their version of AI and talking about what it can do that the others can't. So it's kind of the same thing as you've got, you know, wherever, with companies or with YouTube or whatever, people trying to promote their own brand over the others, and not always being genuine about or transparent about what their services can or cannot do. Chuck asks if I do any off-road biking. I do, as it's good for my dexterity and cognitive skills with all those twists and turns. I do not. One of the reasons I bought a gravel bike is I would like to do some gravel riding. I'm not sure I want to do like single track, like mountain bike type riding. I've watched some of those videos. I think I would end up dead. But I've got some gravel bike trails on my list of places that I'd like to go. So I will probably do some of those, but there again, they're still like relatively flat and mostly straight. They're not real technical rides, but that's probably about as much as I'll do. Miss Lachey says, seen a lot of that, especially lately. And Jeff says, look forward to checking out the newest bike video. Yes, it just went up this morning. I was pretty happy with how it turned out. You can let me know in the comments over there. We're at about 55 minutes here, so like to wrap this up. If anybody has anything else you would like to discuss before we call it a day, thank you as always for coming out and continuing to support the channel and each other. I appreciate it very much. For everyone who stuck around during my bit of a hiatus. Cameron says the writing is bad, but eBay's background replacement outlines are exceptional. There you go. That seems to be something that is a little easier to do. I use it in Canva a ton for things like YouTube thumbnails and other stuff. I generally am not using it for my eBay listings, but the picture AI, the photo AI, putting in different backgrounds, doing the background removals, those tools seem to be pretty good. It's where you're asking AI to do either a big summary of information that is in a listing or in an article, or to write a product description from scratch based on the information that you've put in the listing, where one, there are some accuracy issues. I was watching one not too long ago where the guy was bragging about his AI's ability to create a listing just from a photo, but people were pointing out that it had the incorrect number of megapixels on the camera in the listing and that kind of stuff. So there's still a lot of issues, on top of the fact that AI writing is so obviously AI writing. The verbiage and the pace of the writing, it just is so clearly been written by AI. And I think that turns a lot of folks off still at this point. I know I've had people comment here on this channel that if they see a listing that appears to have been generated by AI, they just click off of it. They don't trust that listing. So that, again, is one of the things you have to balance: the potential ease of being able to use AI to help you create a listing versus the potential downside of maybe alienating potential buyers. I don't know. As I talked about when I did a couple of videos several months ago, which were a little more focused on specific topics like managing your stress and why you should sell on eBay. And I did use some AI for research on those. So what are some ways to manage stress? But I took that information and then essentially wrote it on my own, just using some of the information that the AI was able to generate for me, rather than using that as a script, so that it still sounded like and would have read like a human had written it. Had I just used the AI information, it would have been very stilted. It would have definitely sounded like AI, and it it wouldn't have been genuine. And I think that's important, even in things as simple as eBay listings, that we show a bit of humanity in these. It's one of the things I talk about with my photos, why I don't mind, like when I take a picture of a book and I'm holding down the pages, that my fingers show in the pictures. It shows that I actually have that book, that this is a human being that took this photo, and that little piece of humanity, I think, can make a difference. So Cameron says it brags about the size. Yes. Mary says it was a great video. Which were you talking about? The managing the stress one? Yeah. I finally obviously took my own advice on that and kind of backed down on some of the, I decided when to say when, and changed things up a bit. Miss Lachey says, thank you. Keep enjoying yourself and your rides. Actually, the plan for today was that I was going to try to get out early and go out for a ride to do some filming, but we're supposed to have storms here starting around 1 o'clock. So I put that on the back burner, and here we are talking about reselling. Again, thank you to everyone who came out. Thank you to everyone that stuck with me while we were having the technical issues at the beginning. Now I got to go in and see if I can edit that out of the video that will get posted on YouTube. Again, thank you so much for coming out. We will see you again next time.